welcome to the Webcast for Monday, July 27th. I'm South Ops meteorologist Jonathan O'Brien. Visible satellite shows mostly sunny skies to start out the day. However, we do have a marine layer bringing low clouds and fog to many coastal and some coastal valley areas, as well as a few lingering mid and high-level clouds after a monsoonal surge yesterday. Here's a look at yesterday's lightning map, and we did have a smattering of several dozen lightning strikes. We had an overachieving surge of monsoon moisture yesterday, and while most of the region stayed rain-free, we did see up to 1/10 to 1/3 of an inch of rainfall over portions of San Diego County, and significant cloudiness along with very muggy conditions were observed across much of Southern California. As we head into the new week, it's going to be all about the heat. Big picture-wise, high pressure will be centered over the desert southwest this week. For the next few days, the high will be centered pretty far to the east and moderated by some weak troughing influences off the Pacific. That will keep our temperatures somewhat in check for the first half of the week. However, by late this week and into the weekend, the center of high pressure will shift westward and become much stronger, setting the stage for a potentially extreme heat event. Here's a look at today's forecast highs. They're on the warm side, but not too far above normal thanks to the moderating influences of the offshore troughing. Tuesday will be similar to today, maybe even a little cooler towards the coastal areas thanks to a little more marine influence, and there will be little change into Wednesday as well. One thing we will see over the next couple of days is a gradual drying trend, thanks to that weak offshore troughing providing us with more of a southwesterly flow aloft, which is not a favorable direction for monsoon moisture. As a result, humidities will start to fall over the next couple of days, making the air a little more comfortable, but also leading to drier fuel conditions. Minimum humidity will drop more into the 12 to 25% range, driest over central California. By later this week, temperatures will begin to rise as that center of high pressure shifts closer. Here's a look at the forecast highs by Thursday. And here's an early look at the forecast highs for Saturday, which may be about the hottest day overall. And this is some big ticket heat here. Current projections show high temperatures of 90s to near 100, even in the lower mountains, 104 to 112 across the valleys, 108 to 118 in the high desert, and 115 to 125 in the low desert. Minimum humidity will likely drop further into the single digits and teens away from the coastal areas Thursday through the weekend. And overnight recoveries will become fair to poor across most of the interior with very long burn periods developing. One piece of good news, and this is typical in a strong high-pressure pattern, is that winds will be on the light side this week. Local and terrain effects will generally dominate. While some locally breezy conditions can be expected during the afternoons, no organized significant wind events are expected. And like I mentioned earlier, the upper-level wind flow this week is not going to be favorable for monsoon moisture. Little or no shower thunderstorm activity is expected this week. The earliest indications for any monsoonal potential would be early to mid next week, but even that is not a high-confidence signal right now. With the increasingly hot and dry weather, expect dead fuel moistures to be on steady falling trends this week. This pattern will be supportive of declines in live fuel moistures as well, and this may be a week that pushes a lot of live fuel moistures into critical territory, especially at and below 4,000 feet. In some cases, we're already into critical LFM territory, but for the areas that have been hovering a little above it, this may be the week that drives us below. ERCs will likely rise to the 97th percentile or higher across several PSAs by this weekend. This is the observed and projected ERC trend for South Ops as a whole. All in all, there is increasing confidence that we'll see our most critical burn environment of the year so far by the end of this week, and probably by a pretty large margin. So in terms of fire potential, while things have been pretty tame across California, we do expect fire business to trend up this week. We'll keep an elevated probability for new large fires today and for the next few days, although as you can see, that's pretty close to normal for this time of year. However, by later in the week, we expect to see our highest probabilities of the year so far, perhaps into the high category. And even though we're not concerned about lightning activity or strong wind, historically these very hot and dry patterns like the one we're expecting have produced some of our most significant fire events. So it's important not to be lulled by the relatively tame conditions so far this season, especially as fuel conditions push more into that critical territory. There is a good chance that high-risk triggers for a critical burn environment will be needed for several PSAs for much of the Friday through Sunday timeframe during the peak of the heat event. So definitely keep an eye on the forecast this week. That's it for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. The next one will be on Tuesday, July 28th.